Hi, I'm going to explain some of the common camera terms. The first one that you will see most likely on buying cameras is megapixel. Megapixels indicates the number of pixels. Megapixel means million pixels, or the dots that's on the photo. So the higher the megapixel is, the bigger your image is going to be. That's not going to determine quality, but that is going to determine size. But if you have a small camera with a large megapixel, say a small nice compact camera with a say 20 megapixel, well, that camera is going to be horrible quality, as it is forcing the camera to produce a large image. So look for a camera that has a decent megapixel. Note that megapixel does not indicate quality of photo. I'm going to talk about aperture and its effect on depth of field. Let's start off by talking about its aperture. Aperture is essentially adjusting how much light is going to hit your sensor. And aperture is indicated on lenses, not the body. So if you're using a DSLR, you're going to adjust aperture according to the lens. Now aperture is indicated in the f number. The larger the f number is, so f.22 or something like that, the smaller the aperture is. So it's the opposite. So the smaller the aperture or the f number is, the larger the aperture is. Now let's talk about the effect on depth of field. Aperture is the amount of light it's going to hit your sensor, and it's controlled with your lens and indicated with the f number. So the wider the iris is on your lens, the more light is going to hit your sensor, so it's better for low light conditions. The smaller the aperture is, the less light is going to hit your sensor. Now the aperture is indicated in the f number. If the f number is higher, say f22, it means the iris, or the opening of the iris, is small. So if the f number is like f3, which is a lot smaller than f22, that means the opening is bigger. It's the opposite. Depth of field is the distance between the object you're shooting and to your lens of your camera. Now, depth of field can be controlled in a variety of ways, but there's only one way is the best, and is aperture. You can easily control depth of field by aperture. The higher the f number is, or the smaller the iris is, the more depth, or the thicker the depth of field is going to be. So more things are going to be focused. So if you say like this whole place is going to be in focus, it's not in focus right now, but say this whole place is going to be in focus, and that's called depth of field, and that's a thick depth of field. Say I want to get only this part in focus, and the rest is blurred out. Now this is going to be called a thin depth of field, or you have to use a smaller f number of aperture to control it. The next is shutter speed. So what is shutter speed? Shutter speed is the speed that once you press the shutter button, or the button to take the picture, and how long the exposure is going to last. Now it's indicated in either seconds, milliseconds, or something of a second. So say a thousandth of a second, or a hundredths of a second. That is how you indicate shutter speed. Now shutter speed can be controlled by aperture. The higher the f number is, the faster the aperture is going to be, or the lower the f number is, the slower the shutter speed is going to be. So what is RAW? Well, RAW is basically a file that is uncompressed. Now files like JPEGs, anything other than RAW is compressed. That means that you cannot control, edit the photo as well as on a computer. So RAW is basically a file that has no particular ISO, has no particular exposure, has no particular white balance, nothing. It's just a photo. So you have the scene. You just have the scene right there. And from there on, you can use RAW editors on a computer, and you can edit it to anything you want. Rather on JPEG, you can only change a few things. Note that you only need a RAW file and also a camera that's capable of taking RAW files. Now the last thing we're going to explain is histograms. Now a lot of you people are, seeing these graphs on your camera once it finished taking a photo, or when you're taking a photo and like, what the hell is this? Now a histogram is basically a graph that indicates the dark and light in your photo. Now it's more complex than you think. I can't actually show you, but I will get into histograms in more detail. That's the only basic thing I can say. It indicates like a graph. It's usually in blue and black. And it indicates how dark and how light the photo is, and it makes you get the perfect lighting and white balance. And it'll be definitely further explained as it's very complex. Well, that's it for this video. Be sure to check out more, as I will give many more camera tips, terms, and other things.